Hello and welcome to the Juneteenth panel. This year, the North Carolina Courage and OL Reign have a game on Juneteenth, and then NCFC has a game the following day on the 20th. So we wanted to take this opportunity to highlight Juneteenth and what it meant and what it continues to mean today. So we'll dive more into that in just a second, but first I wanted to start with some intros. I am one of your co-hosts, Mary Pruder. I am in the Dead Whale Society leadership as well as president of the Uproar supporters group for NC Courage.
I'm Ebony. I'm also part of leadership for Dead Whale Society and OCS leadership.
And a myriad of other things that she is not going to share today. So we also have a ton of great guests on today that we wanted to introduce you all to, just in case you don't know them. So to start from the NC Courage, we have Jess McDonald, and we also have Meredith Speck. And then from OL Reign, we have Shara King and Madison Hammond. And then from NCFC, we have Naz Al-Badawi. Is that right, Ebony? I practiced, I'm sorry if that's wrong. And then Malik Hamilton. And then joining us later, hopefully, will be Peter Pearson. So before we go into the questions, I did want to jump into what Juneteenth is, just in case anybody doesn't know. I know I didn't learn in school what it was, and I think only in the last couple of years have I learned what it is. So basically, Juneteenth is short for June 19th, and it marks the day that federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865 to take control of the state and ensure enslaved folks were freed. This was 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. And contrary to what some people might think, the Emancipation Proclamation didn't actually free slaves. It applied specifically to places under the Confederate control and not slaveholding border states or rebel areas under the Union control. So it wasn't until the 13th Amendment was adopted in December of 1865 that slavery was formally abolished. And the history continues to be complicated, and you can argue all sorts of things about maybe not being quite where we need to be, but here we are. And I'm going to go ahead and encourage anybody watching to continue beyond this panel to check up on Black history through documentaries. There's all sorts of articles. You can go to Netflix, there's 13th, you can go to New York Times and check out their 1619 project. And like I said, a bunch of other things, including TikTokers, Twitter. So do a little bit of Googling. And just so you know, Juneteenth is considered the longest running African-American holiday in our country, and it's used to celebrate the end of slavery in the US. It was specifically started the year after Galveston, Texas. They had their first Jubilee Day on June 19th, and for decades afterwards it continued. And as people migrated from Texas, the holiday spread and continues to be officially and unofficially recognized throughout the US, though any federal attempts for recognition has been stalled in Congress, which not necessarily surprising, but that kind of brings us into our first question. And this is for everyone, so.
I'll start it off. So what does Juneteenth mean to you guys?
I can go first. Yeah, so I mean, kind of what Mary had said, it wasn't really something that was taught in school. And so it wasn't until probably more recently, within the last few years, that I really learned and really understood the importance of the holiday. And so to me, it just really means that like true freedom, when we speak about freedom in this country, which is complicated in itself, really doesn't come until everybody's free. And so this idea of, you know, Independence Day and like celebrating America, it's like, how can we celebrate something that doesn't include everyone? And I think that that's something that as a country really have to look back on and really reflect on these things and think like, what does, you know, liberty and justice and freedom and all of these words that we have in all of these important songs and gestures, what does it really mean to our country?
I'll go next. I think for me, you know, Juneteenth is a day that's specifically reserved for the celebration of just Black joy. And I think that a lot of times the narrative gets spun to only give the sad stories and sad narratives about Black communities and the struggles that the Black community and Black people have had to go through. But I think it's just one day and one holiday that is just ours, and we get to just be happy and be proud that we're Black. And I think that that is so special in itself. And I think my personal experience with it has, varied just because I did learn about it in school, but it was like the little tiny section of the textbook. And it kind of just like had a couple sentences being like, this exists, but we're not really going to take a ton of time to acknowledge it in the way that we acknowledge a 4th of July, in the way we acknowledge a Memorial Day. And so I think that, being able to recognize the importance that the day has in the Black community, but also, a lot of people in the Black community don't have an intimate relationship with the holiday. And so being able to spread that to everybody, I think is just really important.
Yeah, and excuse me, I'll talk about that a little bit too, because I grew up mostly with Middle Eastern and Black friends or African-American friends. And to be honest, I had never heard of Juneteenth. I never learned about it in school. And to your point, Madison, a lot of my friends I grew up with didn't really celebrate it, right? The way that it deserves to be celebrated. So to me, it should be a celebration because like you said, like we're celebrating July 4th and we're celebrating these other holidays for the country. And this is maybe the biggest one of them all. And we're not hitting on it nearly enough. So for me, it needs to be talked about more, and it can't just be last year because of the Black Lives Matter movement. No, this needs to be something that as we move forward, it continues to be a national holiday and something where even if the Congress hasn't necessarily passed it yet, that doesn't mean that we still don't treat it like one and we still don't celebrate it.
Yeah, to follow up, for me, it's a little more personal. My grandmother, she helped raise me. And so obviously I was raised a little more old school than, a lot of my friends because, they had mom and dad, whereas I had mom and grandma in my life. And so my grandmother, she grew up in the South. She grew up in Alabama in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So I got the true history of it all. I grew up with the true history from day one. And as a child, I guess I really didn't understand Black and white because as y'all know, I play a predominantly white sport in the United States. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm different from my teammates, or my friends that, I grew up with. And so I really didn't understand the difference up until I, grew a little bit older around high school. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is what we're celebrating. This is why I have to be this way. Oh, this and that. And obviously it was instilled because of my grandmother. And so it's important to me because we have to present ourselves to a pretty high standard. And the reason for that is because those who fought for our freedom, I couldn't imagine the things that, our ancestors went through. I really couldn't. And I feel so privileged for that. Even though we're still fighting the fight in a different kind of way, they had it worse than us. And so it's important to me just because, we carry ourselves in a positive manner. We continue to fight for equality and things like that. And yeah, I'm just super pumped to celebrate it. I'm super pumped to be Black and to raise a Black little boy in America. I'm so proud of this little boy and, proud of being a Black mom in the United States and, succeeding in, a lot of things. And so I'm just here to instill that in my son as well.
You should be very proud, Jess. I think for me, I actually also was lucky enough to learn about it in school. And I think, 1865, right? So like just the longevity of the holiday and to see like what the Black community has gone through over the past 180 years, for lack of being more specific. But like I was reading something recently and it was like, and in the Jim Crow era, like the Black community was forced to celebrate it indoors and privately. It wasn't this like huge celebration because they just simply weren't allowed to. And I think just the fact that it has withstood all of the like, what's the word I'm looking for? Everything that people have tried to stop, like they've persisted. And so I think like the fact that we're still celebrating it today, like it really should be a celebration of joy because there's so much to celebrate in the Black community and the people are just amazing. So I do think it's important to celebrate the joy, like Madison said, but also like we've come far, but we haven't come far enough. So like it's also important that to continue to celebrate, to continue to remind people that we haven't come far enough.
I think for me personally, not being from here, it was the first I've ever heard about it. So when I was asked to come into this panel and talk about it, it was a great opportunity for me because I was able to learn about it. Being from Canada, it's not something that we celebrate up there, but I agree with everything that's been said. You know, there's clearly still a fight that is going on for equality, and I'm proud to be Black. I'm proud to represent where I come from. Growing up in a Jamaican household, both my parents Jamaican background, and clearly in North America as a whole, there's still a fight that is going on where, you know, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and that's all we're asking for, to be treated like human beings. And I think it's very important because there's some people that, like me, don't know about it, or some people that, you know, don't necessarily experience it personally. So it's hard for them to wrap their heads around what's going on in the world. So I think it's very important, and to celebrate it and to put it out there. And like Nas said, even if it's not recognized as a national holiday, being able to represent it and celebrate it with your loved ones and people around you, I think it's extremely important. So I'm happy to be here. And honestly, I just want to learn more about it and see, you know, the stories from everyone here, their personal experiences with their families and revolving the celebration.
So this next question is specifically for the Courage and the OL Reign players. So how does it feel to be the nationally televised game for Juneteenth? And beyond the game, how are you planning on celebrating the holiday?
Jess, I feel like I'm going to let you take this one.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. And it's nice to obviously get the recognition, you know, for the Black community. And so to be able to celebrate it, I am absolutely over the moon. We've got some shirts going on for the game. You guys purchase yours. Actually, Ebony is representing one right now, which I'm a little jealous because I'm like, where is mine? But it's okay. I'm fine. It's fine. It's fine. Fine.
I'll hand deliver yours personally.
No, you don't have to do that. I'm joking. But yeah, I'm super pumped, and I'm super pumped for my teammates, you know, to wear the shirts, to obviously help with their oh my gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Their support overall for the Black community and for this historical day. And I'm excited to obviously share it with OL Reign.
Yeah, I mean, we feel the same. We're super excited about it. We're glad that we get to share this experience with you guys, and that you guys kind of have taken the initiative to make this event happen. And so we're 100% on board. And as far as, you know, it being nationally televised, I mean, that's always hype, but especially on, you know, a day like this, it has so much historical meaning. Like, what more could you ask for, you know?
Oh, I felt like Z did a good enough
Oh,
job.
no. If you have, that's fine.
No, I mean, I think, you know, just from being on national television, sometimes I'm like, all of our games should be on national television. But anyway, I think it just is really exciting. You know, my family is going to be able to watch the game from wherever, and there's not going to be who has the login for Paramount Plus. And so I think like that's really exciting. But yeah, just in terms of the actual day and the celebration, I think it's just going to be really nice to not only have, you know, Z and my teammate Alana, but also like to be with Jess, be with Lynn and the Black players on the Courage. I think it's just a great time for Black girls to support Black girls. And I think like that's really exciting and it's really powerful. And I love being a part of the BWPC. And I think that all of us, you know, we might be competitive on the field, but off the field, knowing you have this other family is really special.
And for NCFC, you guys will also be wearing the shirts when you travel on June 20th for your game versus Chattanooga. What's it feel like to be able to also make a statement, even when away from home, to show your support?
Yeah, so to be honest, both Malik and I are hurt right now. So I don't know if Malik will make it in time to make that trip, but I won't. So I'm gonna be rocking my shirt at the Courage game on Saturday, hopefully. But no, it's still a big deal, right? To be able to wear those shirts. I mean, we're really grateful. We love it. Ebony, you should turn around so we can see the back as well, because the back is pretty cool too.
Sure.
Model.
I don't know if you can even see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, any way that we as a team can continue to help and support this matter, we're going to do. I know that we're working on getting some Black Lives Matter patches to put on our jersey as well. So it's great that we have a locker room where everyone's extremely supportive of it. And I know the guys are looking forward to wearing the shirts as well and to help represent and really show that we're all here for the same cause.
Yeah, like Nas, I'm injured at the moment, so I won't be down there with the team. But again, I'm gonna be at the game on Saturday, so I'm hoping to wear mine there and represent. And just for our team, we have a great locker room full of guys that are supportive of this movement. And you know, you look at our team, there's people from all different parts of the world. So we really embrace that, and I think on our team that isn't Black is very supportive of the movement. And like Nas said, we're looking at putting something on the jersey in a spot that's prominent, so you can sort of see it, and you know, everyone's proud to wear that and represent that cause. So I think it's a great opportunity for all of us.
So next question, parts of the Black history have been omitted from school teachings. Just recently, Texas legislatures passed a bill limiting the teaching of slavery in school. There are tons of other states trying to do the same or have done the same. How would you say that limiting the knowledge of Black history, like Tulsa, like Juneteenth, how does that hinder future students and the future of our country?
This country is so messed up sometimes. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? Like they're limiting the teaching of one of the biggest, if not the biggest thing in our nation ever. And it's a huge deal that a lot of people had to go through. And it's something that a lot of people suffered through, and that their descendants are sometimes suffering through today as well. And I mean, it doesn't surprise me that Texas is doing it, right? It's because of what we know about Texas and some of the things that they do. But the fact that other states are trying to do it as well, I mean, to me, it's a little bit scary that people are doing that. And it's almost like, not to get too political, but the stuff with Trump and everything, where half the time you want to think it's a joke, right? And that there's not really that many people out there that support him and what he's trying to do. But the reality is there is, and we're still a long ways away from reaching where we need to be as a country. But to me, it's absolutely ridiculous, and it makes zero sense to me.
I feel like it's a kind of cheesy phrase, but knowledge is power. And I think that the limiting of this knowledge, and all throughout American and even world history, there are just instances upon instances where people have tried to take away power from others by limiting their full scope and understanding of certain situations. And I think for the Black community specifically, that has really been a huge disadvantage in terms of, you know, financial literacy, you know, socioeconomic status. We could get into all kinds of things, redlining, everything. But I think, you know, it's just really heartbreaking, because I think the access to education is one of the things that I've been so privileged with, and a lot of my peers have been privileged with. And it really just gives you the opportunity to do whatever you want with your life. And I think that, you know, taking away that opportunity in order to fulfill whatever narrative is suitable for you is just really heartbreaking to me. And unfortunately, I think the only way that, you know, we as a country, we as communities, and we as individuals can just move forward and progress, like actually progress, is to know the full scope of our past. And I think that us trying to take that away now in 2021 is just so unproductive. But unfortunately, we're just going to continue seeing actions like this unless you start with the individual. You start with yourself, you start with your friends, and you start with your community. And, you know, you just tell yourself, like, this isn't good enough. And surrounding yourself with people who know that it's not good enough and continuing to expand that message, I think, is literally the only thing that we can do in order to preserve our future.
Seeing a lot of head nods in agreement. So, if anyone has anything to add. So Tulsa and Rosewood are both simultaneously known and unknown Black economic massacres sites that happened after Juneteenth. There are two of the cities that are featured prominently on the back of our shirts for the warm up. What do these sites represent to you in terms of Black equity and social justice? And how can the aftermath of these massacres in these cities help current and future social justice leaders shape their approach to Black equity?
Yeah, I think this is another instance. Both of these are instances of things that we should have learned more about in school. But yeah, I mean, I think these are prime examples of why, in a lot of instances, the Black community is further behind in a lot of areas, because anytime in history when the Black community started to pick up steam, started to, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, like things where we're building community, building wealth, it got knocked right back down to ground zero. And so it's so important to know that, because that explains a lot of the economic differences or inequalities that we see today. And it's so interesting how people, today try and put it on like initiative and like, the American dream and pull your bootstraps up and get the job done. When like really it's like, no, like you cannot look at it from this lens without going back in time and seeing how all of these things have impacted our community. So yeah, it's so important that people just continue to bring these stories and bring these, historical events to the light, so that we can continue to learn and continue to grow as a society.
She hit it right on the money. Yeah, she preached.
Yeah, and I think that all goes back to the schools and how they're blocking the education of any sort of history that isn't very specific to uplifting a white narrative, essentially.
So as we approach June 19th, what do you hope fans, allies, and yourself as players take from this panel and Juneteenth overall?
I think just to be aware that, we are human beings at the end of the day. Be aware of, some of the words that come out of your mouth. I feel like it's been such a fragile time, and people just think that they can just say whatever they want, especially when, they're part of the fan base. And you see it escalating in the EPL and international games. It's been kind of bizarre. And so I think we just need some positive support, some positive support for obviously the Black players, just like the white players, regardless of anything that's happening on the field. And so, I'm just proud of the fans that we do have, and we haven't had that controversy here, but it just needs to come to a halt, and people just need to obviously become more aware, continue to talk about it, and, pass along your goodness of your heart to others, at the end of the day. So, yeah.
I think I would just say, a lot of the things that we've talked about already have been so, important and just really hitting the nail on the head. So I guess I would just say, as Black players, we're all happy and proud to be Black. And I think that this day should just celebrate and amplify all the good that being Black does for not only us as individuals, but for my career, for my community, and for my family and things like that. So it's just a day of joy too. So I think that should just be something you take away from it.
So what are resources that you all use yourselves to learn about Black history, since the education system is sorely lacking?
I'm telling you, Twitter University hits like no other. I genuinely probably have learned more from social media than anywhere else. And it's like, once you see these things on social media, you can like really go and do the research and look up deeper into the facts. But it's just so interesting. Again, we revisit this idea of like, it's hard to even know where to find the sources, because they've tried to hide them for so long that it's like, is this true? Is this like, where do I even go to find these things? So yeah, I think as well, like documentaries, there's some amazing Black historians that are really doing the hard work and groundwork to get this information out. So yeah, it's just continuing to use resources like that.
Andy Sullivan from The Spirit told me and about this app. It's called Black Lives Matter Digest, BLM Digest. It's an app, and when you open up, like the home screen is like today in Black history, and then there's like a learn tab, an act tab, a shop tab, and it's genuinely like the most incredible resource. And like kind of to like Z's point, like people don't know where to look, and like it actually like puts everything you can need in one spot. So you should all download it, and you should tell everyone you know to download it, because it's super informative.
I'd agree with the social media. Definitely, you can find anything on there. For me personally, I learned a lot of it just from my parents. Even my little sister now, she's 10. When she was growing up, all the books my parents would buy her, who is Martin Luther King, who's Frederick Douglass, things like that. And I think also just asking questions. A lot of people don't want to ask questions because they don't want to, necessarily have these conversations and make people feel uncomfortable. But if you're not educated on something, sometimes the best way to learn is just to ask someone that has that information. And I think having these discussions, tuning into things like this will definitely help people become more aware.
On the topic of asking questions, I just remembered another source of mine. Asking older generations. I just remember over the summer sitting down with my grandma and just like from Tennessee and just asking her all her stories and her telling me about marching with Martin Luther King and like all of these like amazing, incredible things that like we really have the ability to just ask. And it's so important that we really do ask these questions before, that generation passes along, so just really getting all the information sources that we can.
I'm going to throw in TikTok as well. Really great place with a lot of Black historians on there. A lot of people just telling me things that I never knew and in nice small digests so I can learn a bunch of things at once.
I mean, I think everyone pretty much hit everything. Talk to people, ask questions, social media. I mean, I agree with everything that everyone said. I did not know about the app, Mary. That's awesome. But outside of that, I mean, I agree with everything.
So for all three teams, Juneteenth and racism kind of go hand in hand. As we've seen within both leagues, it is still very prominent in today's sport. How do you hope that Juneteenth helps people understand how much Black players are impacted by the racism that still is very prominent in our game today and within our own country?
I mean, truthfully, revisiting Madison's point, I think that more importantly for us, it's a day of joy and celebration. So I think as, allies or as non-Black people, it's more important for you to, learn and navigate that space in, whatever way is best for you. So, I mean, it's, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I feel like I kind of understand the two to be kind of separate everything is connected, but separate in the sense of, I think that, there's history to be learned and just lean into the history and the facts. You don't have to go to your Black teammates every time to give you the history of the Black community and Black trauma in this country. You've got Twitter, TikTok, I'm sure Snapchat's got something they probably have a Black Lives Matter tab these days. Like there's so much info on the internet. And I think that, kind of leaning into what is available is important in order to resituate your understanding of history in this country and how it has impacted the current situation that we all live in.
Awesome.
I think that people need to understand that just not saying anything or staying silent is just as bad, right? Like if you see something that's incorrect or you know someone that doesn't understand why this is a big deal, then you need to communicate with them. You need to explain with them and try to help them understand or try to give them the resources where they can learn and they can understand why it is a big deal for our country. And so for me as an ally and for other non-Black teammates or fans or whoever it is, continue to educate yourself, but also try to help others as well and make sure that your voice is heard in support.
So with the year as it's been, it's been a long pandemic year and a half now, a lot of protests, a lot of violence, a lot of things have come to the surface that a lot of people have been able to kind of just keep down and ignore. That kind of leads the way for a lot of need for taking care of yourself mentally, especially as an activist, as people that are working to make change. What do you all do when you need to step back and take care of yourself during these times, and anytime really, but particularly because of how hard things have been.
I would just say, take advantage of the resources around you, the people around you. During this year, I was fortunate enough. Usually my whole career I was away from my family. I found myself in a situation where I was back home. And although, there's times where you're down or things are going on in the world that may be upsetting you, just sitting back and being grateful for what we do have, and taking advantage of these times that we get with whether it's your teammates, your family, whatever situation you may find yourself in, being grateful. And although there is things going on that, are heartbreaking and upsetting, there is still some light at the end of the tunnel, and just sort of staying in good spirits and trying to embrace what there is to offer at that moment in time.
I feel like for me, as a Black woman, especially with the platform that, we have as athletes nowadays in comparison to, my grandmother didn't have, much of a voice the way I do now. And so I feel like we just kind of broke out of our shells last year, as a Black community, and people who have supported Black Lives Matter, who have become more aware of, the issues that we have in our country. I guess COVID had a lot to do with it because everybody was at home. People were bored. George Floyd video got out, and you look at Rodney King. It was like, okay, that was a popular video, but then they shoved it kind of under the rug a little bit. That's just kind of what's been happening to Black people historically. It's like something happens and then kind of brush under the rug. But now people have cell phones. We're bored nowadays. Because COVID kind of shut everything down, and so I think after the George Floyd video became so popular, because everybody was at home, they had the time to watch what was happening and then fight for what is right. And so it's been so much more of a discussion. I'm 33 years old, and this is the most I've ever talked about being Black. I never talked about being Black, most of my life. And so now it's nice to be able to break out of my shell, use my platform, and continue to fight for what's right, continue to talk about this. And so, we have a lot of support. You guys saw how historical of these movements have been for Black Lives Matter. I mean, there were people in Germany, doing protesting for Black Lives Matter after George Floyd video came out. And so just to see the support that we have had globally has been absolutely amazing. And so we just need to continue that and just continue to fight and use our voices.
So what should non-Black teammates and non-Black fans do to be better allies, just moving forward in general?
I feel like this is a question that we get so often. And I feel very grateful for the group that we have here at OL Reign, because they go to bat for us. And I think that's one of the biggest things you can do. When voices need to be heard, it's not always like dependent on us. Like they're going to go and they're going to like let it be known why these things are not okay, or why we feel how we feel, or whatever. And so super grateful for that. And I think that's just a huge piece of how you can be an ally without obviously stepping over the line of trying to speak for someone, but like really amplifying the voices that are being, put out there by Black players and Black people.
There's definitely a balancing act for allies to make sure that they don't kind of take over the conversation, make it about themselves, and even to step back, when you've made an issue, when somebody's called you out, to not lash out and just kind of understand that maybe you don't understand everything the way you think you do. It's not your lived experience. You definitely need to be able to not take things personally and understand that what your job is as a non-Black person, an ally, is to keep growing, to keep spreading the message, and use whatever privilege you have to continue to elevate voices.
So I have a question for the Courage players and the Reign players, because obviously it's a national televised game. What, and obviously it's the Courageous only national televised game. Sorry, I know it's not the greatest. Where do you see this NWSL as a whole evolving as we move past Juneteenth and keeping within Juneteenth and keeping those celebrations going? Because I mean, we've got also another game with Chicago happening that same day. How do you hope that those celebrations continue onward as we move forward with this league and with that day?
I think I would just say and hope that the league continues to, take our thoughts and our ideas into consideration and think about how they're going to meaningfully incorporate those into the vision and future of the league. How do you elevate young girls of color and young Black girls who want to play in this league, and give them the tools and resources and support to make it from youth soccer to the pros, because it's the best job ever, and we want more Black girls to be playing with us as the league keeps progressing.
And then for Naz and Malik, we've seen it's going to be sort of the same question. How do you hope that the USL, all entities of the USL, continue past this day, especially spreading the message of Juneteenth and Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, I mean, look, the beautiful thing about soccer for me, or football, whatever you call it, for me, is that it's the most diverse sport in the world. So, I mean, we have every type of color, religion, whatever you want to call it, orientation, whatever you want to say, in the game. And so, I mean, I'll look at my team. I'm trying to think exactly the number wise, but if you look at it, some of our best players on the team are Black players, right? Like, Black players are such a big part of the game in the world and in our country today. And it's only going to continue to grow, hopefully, as they continue to receive more support. And I think that the league needs to continue to encourage celebrating Juneteenth, because we have so many Black players across the league that how can you not, right? Like, I mean, it's something that needs to be celebrated across the world, but for the league specifically, our Black players are some of the most important players in our entire league, and everyone knows that. And so, I mean, this the quality of them, not only as players, but as people. And I mean, I could talk about this all day, but hopefully the league just continues to grow and continues to advocate for our Black players, and continues to help us all learn more about it and spread the word even more in the message.
Just to touch on what Naz said there, I was speaking with our kit man today, Yusuf, and we were just talking about how many great people he's met, throughout his job, and that's the thing he loves about it most, from all over the world. And this sport brings us all together. And I mean, even you look at the Euros going on right now, you get people from all different nations. It brings them all together, and just because of this one sport, we find a common ground. And I think me, throughout my career, meeting so many people playing in England, now in the States, and also in Canada, I've met so many great people from all different backgrounds. So I think just embracing everyone and understanding that diversity is what makes this game such a beautiful sport, and it's a big aspect of it, and it's ultimately what makes the world come together. So I think just acknowledging that and continuing to spread the word about things like this and other holidays in the future, and acknowledging things that are going on in the world around us, and not being afraid to have these discussions and to acknowledge that it's going on around us.
This is the last question before we wrap up here. Just more of a final remarks. Anything you guys want fans, allies, anyone on this panel to know about just your final thoughts on the day, and then we'll wrap it up here.
My final thought of the day is shout out to Jess McDonald for being a fire mom and soccer player and absolutely killing the game. You're such a role model. You have been for years, watching you play. An absolute beast of a player, just so talented. So credit to you. Just want to hype you up real quick. Looking forward to the game on Saturday. And yeah, that's my last remark.
Thank you for the shout out. Girl, you got me over here in my feelings. I really appreciate that. Yeah, at the end of the day, just everybody, thank you for your support. Thank you for, being aware. Let's all continue to be good people. And I'm super pumped for this game, super pumped to share it with OL Reign. Just a historical day overall for, people, for Black people in America. And so I'm super excited to celebrate this joyful day and a joyful celebration.
I guess my last remarks would just be, as just said, thank you to all the fans for your genuine support and supporting us, not only as players, but as people. And I'm excited to see, where this league goes, and just I'm excited for everything. So that's my last remark.
I'm excited to see the Courage get a win on Saturday. But
Whoa.
Excuse me.
I'm gonna need you to calm it down there now.
Take it back down.
it was getting a
I
little too
wasn't gonna
friendly.
say anything. I wasn't gonna say anything.
I'm excited to play against Jess. That'll be so fun.
Yeah, no, I'm yet to be able to watch a Courage game since I've been out here. So I'm excited for that, and to do it on such a historic day means a lot. So I'm hoping, like Nas said, hoping they get a win for my first game, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun day. Hopefully a lot to celebrate, and I'm excited to hopefully get a win.
Wow, this is feeling a little one-sided here, people.
Just a little bit.
It just got really uncomfortable.
Hey, Ebony and Mary, Peter's trying to hop on. And I know we're done, but can we just let him hop on and we all say bye and get off?
Of course.
Yeah.
Pete,
Hey, Peter.
I say sorry about that.
it's okay,
How's
man.
everybody doing?
CP time for Juneteenth. Let's go.
Oh, God.
With,
I was thinking the same thing, but it's okay.
All right, guys, thanks for a good meeting.
So
Thank
good.
you all for joining us and watching and participating.
Don't forget, if you're watching this before the 19th, there is an NC Courage NOL Reign match at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And then on the 20th, there is an NCFC match.
Versus Chattanooga Red Wolves.
That is the following day, the 20th at 7 p.m. Support your local soccer team, support your Black players, the Black people in your lives. Follow the Black Women's Players Collective and the
USL BPA.
Yep, we will put that all in the video notes. We'll put everybody's social on there as well if you want to follow. Thank you guys again. Keep the conversation going. It'll be hard. There's a lot of it to be had. It's messy, but it's worth having. Keep reading, keep watching, keep doing all the things, and make yourself better people, and let's make this country a better place for everyone else. So thank you.
Amen. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right.